este caso, el primer día de jornadas. Estamos muy contentos de que tengamos la oportunidad, el honor de contar con el profesor Ryszard Kluszczynski, que está con nosotros para este diálogo especializado. Bienvenido, Ryszard. Welcome, Ryszard.
Welcome. Good evening.
Ryszard,
Morning, day.
good morning, good evening. Ryszard, que está en línea desde la ciudad de Łódź, en Polonia, nos va a hablar acerca de lo que podría ser una ecología no antropocéntrica, Non-Anthropocentric Ecology, y específicamente a partir justamente de un proyecto muy interesante que tiene ya varios años y muchas publicaciones sobre una especie de hibridación entre proyecto editorial, de exhibición, de catálogo, y que nosotros desde la unidad Lerma, desde el Departamento de Artes y Humanidades, lo hemos seguido de cerca porque es un tipo de formato para divulgar y difundir contenidos científicos y de producción artística, de producción artística como metodología de exploración del mundo, y que justamente ahora hemos tenido la oportunidad también de participar. Entonces, esta charla va a tener lugar en inglés. Yo voy a presentar al profesor Ryszard Kluszczynski tanto en español como en inglés, y después el diálogo lo vamos a sostener en inglés. So I'm going to introduce you, Ryszard, briefly. Ryszard Kluszczynski es un académico en nuevos medios, escritor y curador. Es profesor en medios, en cultura y en estudios del arte. Es también el jefe de departamento de New Media y Digital Culture en la Universidad de Łódź, en Polonia. Y también es profesor en la Academia de Artes en Łódź. También él investiga asuntos que están relacionados con New Media Arts, con el tema de cibercultura, con teoría del arte contemporáneo, con también la teoría de las prácticas del arte contemporáneo, y está también interesado en las interacciones entre arte, ciencia, tecnología y política. Él es el director artístico del programa Art and Science Meeting en el Centro para las Artes Contemporáneas en Gdansk. Esto es desde 2011, y ha sido curador de numerosas exposiciones dentro de este programa. Ha sido también co-curador de la exhibición itinerante United States of Europe, que tuvo lugar del 2011 al 2013, y es curador de la segunda Bienal Internacional de Arte Contemporáneo Mediations, que tuvo lugar en Poznan 2010. Es curador en jefe de cine, video y multimedia, artes multimedia, en el Centro de Arte Contemporáneo Ujedowski Castle en Varsovia. Y bueno, lo voy a decir brevemente en inglés. I'm going to introduce you briefly in English as well. Ryszard Kluszczynski is a media art scholar, writer, and curator. He's professor of media, culture, and art studies, chair of the Department of New Media and Digital Culture at the University of Łódź in Poland. He's professor at the Academy of Fine Arts in Łódź. He investigates the issues of new media arts and cyberculture, contemporary art theory and practices, avant-garde and transdisciplinary cultural transformations, and recent interactions between art, science, technology, and politics. He is artistic director of Art and Science Meeting Program in the Center for Contemporary Art in Gdansk, curator of numerous exhibitions within the program. He is co-curator of Traveling International Exhibition, United States of Europe, from 2011 to 2013. He's curator of the Second International Biennale of Contemporary Art, Mediations, Poznan 2010. He is chief curator of film, video, and multimedia arts in the Center for Contemporary Art, Ujedowski Castle in Warsaw, 1990 to 2001. So welcome, Ryszard. Welcome to this dialogue in this encounter of sound ecology here in Mexico City. We are really happy to have you again. You were our guests last year, and we're happy to be here again talking about very interesting project that we were talking about when preparing for this dialogue. But the first thing, as a start of our conversation, I would like to do it through a question. like, what does it mean to do art and science for you? That, I think from there we can go and touch some other issues that are medular for understanding what we're going to talk about.
That depends on from which perspective you ask such a question. For a scholar, researcher, it means just to develop the field of your research, your competences, your skills. You need to go over the borders between different disciplines. You have to grasp more concepts than actually enough to deal with your own field. You are becoming day after day kind of a beginner, because you have to learn something new, to understand better the interaction between art and other fields. When you are an artist, it is, I think, even more difficult, because besides all this knowledge, you have to develop different relationships and different forms of work. You have to extend your artistic studio to encompass laboratories, to encompass different technologies. So this is actually working hard in the liminal space between different disciplines. When you talk about the curator, this is actually a situation when you have to go beyond your experiences. You need to understand the specificity of working with art and science from the curatorial perspective. When I was initiating this project in the 2010-11, there was not many examples how to work. There were some curators working in the field of bioart, for example, like Jens Hauser. But on the other hand, we are working in this art and science, scientific and art field. We've had to develop the ideas, the strategies, and build up the new platform to communicate with the audiences. You know, when you are coming like me from the field of media and new media art, it is a little bit easier, because as new media curator, you already had to work as a mediator between artists and institutions, between artists and the audiences, because again, in the context, institutional context, working with new media art was quite heavy stuff. When I was curating the exhibition of Lynn Hirschman, for example, in the mid-90s, I was surprised when she told me how few big exhibition experiences she had before, in spite of the fact that she was about to get a special honorary prize from German culture ministry for outstanding in world terms artist. So anyway, this is transdisciplinary approach. You have to remember that you move between different fields, and you have to take what is the best from each of them to build up something which is interesting for the audience, understandable, and worth undertaking.
Yes. Well, I think it's very interesting, the concept of mediator that you said. Of course, you mentioned this because you're coming, as you stated, from the media and new media art sphere, and now we're talking about not just institutions, artists. We're talking about scientists, and then we're talking at this kind of projects that are non-disciplinary, and that's very interesting. The concept of mediator, because then we may think how complex it is to communicate this kind of science and art projects, you know, because there's people, I think that there's still some issues about understanding what really is art and science. And sometimes even the fact that there's this permanent idea about art science is only art and hard science, mathematics, engineering, design, natural sciences, biology, robotics. Well, those are like the first very obvious links. But of course, when we talk about science, we're talking about some plenty of science and even humanities that are involved into this in this kind of mix. So how complex is to try to communicate this?
It is very complex, and actually, the case of my exhibitions, I was trying in the beginning to focus on particular areas. So when I was working, for example, with Oron Katz and Tiona Dzur, I focused on living artworks, or how they call it, semi-living sculptures, and developing the dialogue between biological areas and art, which was quite an interesting experience because I presented this exhibition in two different institutions. First, I curated this for the Center for Contemporary Art, and after that, the Science Center asked me to present this exhibition also there in Warsaw. And it was interesting experience because I just realized, because it was 2012, it was the beginning of the project. I just realized that in both places, such exhibition had to challenge many obstacles. Making art in Science Museum was a little bit that much extraordinary, like making bio-art in art institution. So. But little by little, I was moving towards grasping larger fields of research, of disciplines, of competences. And for example, the exhibition from 2019, so this is a book coming out of this. This is Beyond the Borders. But the second part of the title is Processed Body, Expanded Brain, Distributed Agency. So I was actually looking for the art I can place in the field of interaction between robotic art, neuro art, bio art. So artists coming from different backgrounds and having some different ideas about what they want to do, what they want to present. They found a common platform on this transdisciplinary movement area, that they just realized that whatever they do, robotic or bio or sound or installation or performance, they all come together in this field where everything is actually movable, that you can recreate all the ideas, you can recreate each context, you can just grasp the idea coming from completely different area and make it central, make it focal for what you are trying to do. So it was a great experience, and I was happy that artists felt really good in this area. And it was for me also interesting because I managed to create a field of meeting for artists, different generations. Jill Scott is actually one of the pioneers of this art and science interests in the field of art. Ulrike Gabriel belongs to this mid-generation. She had extremely outstanding, important achievements already in the 1990s. But I also had two artists like Marco Donnarumma or Karolina Żeniewicz. This is just new generation. They graduated art schools not a long time ago. And it was great to see how people with such a huge background like Jill found interesting dialogue with someone like young, like Karolina. It makes that this is actually over-generational movement, that this is just based in the interest and understanding the fact that you have to go beyond the borders if you want to say something important today.
Yes, and also I would like to maybe, if you could share with us more about this project. This you have this collection that you were showing us one of the books already, but this is a collection that has been going on for many years. You have several titles already out. But the interesting part, what I most find most remarkable is that this is like a hybrid between an exhibition and an editorial project, between what we still call in Mexico a scientific book with the element of art. So it's not just having the artwork and then having some kind of a curatorial text related to the artwork, but it goes beyond. And I would like to know more about how you finally found this balance, and how's the perception of this kind of books?
From the very beginning, I thought that I should not just make the regular catalogs for the exhibitions, because the catalog is just institutional art format. So when you do art and science and try to go transdisciplinary, you should not use the format, which is very disciplinary. So I thought that I need to have books which can build the bridge between artistic activity and all the context this activity develops. So now I started in quite conditional way, because with this book, books came after the conference towards the third culture, interaction between art, science, and technology. So it was in 2011. But most of other books, I was trying to focus from one side on the work of the artist or artists who participated in the exhibition, but in the same time to build the wider context and talk about something which is important for the artist work, but is actually important from the philosophical, cultural way. So, for example, the book on Masaki Fujihata, around Masaki Fujihata, the title is Masaki Fujihata and Hybrid Space-Time Art, Augmenting the World. Because I realized Masaki Fujihata in the last few years developed a very interesting body of artworks dealing with augmented reality. But I know his art from ages. So I just realized that this is not by chance, because in his art, I can observe this interest for going beyond the borders, for transgression many years before. So I just proposed him to make an exhibition showing how this process towards augmented reality has developed in his art. So we started with the works from early 1990s, just to show that between 2017 and 92, there is a very interesting development line of just multi lines. When there was the exhibition of Guy Benary, the book was about biorobotic art and its cultural context. When there was the exhibition of Patrick Tracet in his creative robots, we have a book about the art of the creative machines. So it was not only about the artists participating in the program, but it was always about the problems, the issues around what they do, just to show them as pioneers of some developments that are important not only for art, but also for science, but also for political issues. And what is also very important for me nowadays, because in the 1990s, I wrote widely about critical art. It was a special period in Poland, in Europe, that we had to challenge different issues, sometimes right-wing, sometimes similar. And critical art, which I consider the artistic way of doing cultural studies, was very important for me. Later on, I focused on this hard sciences, as you said, and because it was more important from my perspective, because I wanted to challenge the institutional borders, just to show in the museums, show in the art centers, art which are not that much interested in artistic values, but rather trying to take some important problems. This is why I focus on robotics, on bio, on nano. But again, now we are facing again different kinds of problems. We deal with Anthropocene, we deal with the problem of migrations, fascism, and a lot of social, political issues has become again extremely important. So now I'm coming back also again to this area. But now this is like now over the spiral. I want now to put together art, science artists and social science artists, humanities artists, political artists. I'm just looking for the platform to create a space for meeting of all this kind of different perspectives, because I think that we should try to develop this humanity, social interests in art as research problems, but in the same not to lose this hard science relationships. I'm looking for the possibility to put them together.
Okay, well, we already have one question of somebody that is asking for, well, Ursula Bravo, she says, thank you very much for this project. Is it possible to have a list of the books, which I think is very interesting, and I know you will tell us where we can get them. And also at the same time that we're answering maybe this question, I would like you to talk about the last exhibition and editorial project, the one with Victoria Vesna, and the title is Towards a Non-Anthropocentric Ecology, which actually titles the dialogue that we are in now, because that's also the point of departure to make a larger reflection about environmental issues, but social issues, political issues, as you just said.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. Maybe at first to answer this question about how to get to this publications, I placed them all on Academia Edu on my profile, except the most latest one, because that's a deal with institution I collaborate with, that they need some time to sell printed books before I make them openly accessible on Academia Edu. So anyway, most of the books, except the most recent one, you can find on Academia Edu. As for this recent project, yes, it was the exhibition of Victoria Vesna this year, presenting the piece Noise Aquarium. This is very interesting work about how noise produced by humans kills living sea, ocean creatures. And this is why my idea to make a book related to this exhibition was just to think about critical discourses related to such issues. I realized and I assumed that we should try to avoid speaking about such problems from the purely human perspective. We need to move towards non-anthropocentric view, just to think about how to deal with the problems that actually they have been killing us. Not only us humans, maybe we just deserve it because we are responsible for all this, but all the living creatures all over the planet. So this is interesting because from the purely scientific perspective, this is difficult to not only to try to solve such problems, but also to deal with it, because one of the researcher writer about such issues, he wrote that such problems are so big, they have such a scale that we can't grasp them just from the singular perspective. It is like we are too close to something. We can see just the small piece of it. We can understand the whole. So we need the perspective, which is transdisciplinary. And then I just realized that art is one of the best perspectives. Art rooted in this art science background, producing knowledge as part of his selected, chosen obligations. Art dealing with other scientific perspectives. So in this book, we try to analyze the problems connected to the work of Victoria, but also the wider problems, how to speak on behalf of other creatures without becoming post-colonial. It's many questions to discuss. And I think that this is, yes, I agree what you said, that this is the example of the perspective where the purely hard scientific perspective has to join social, political, cultural, humanistic perspective, just because only this hybrid point of view can bring us.
Encontrar estos libros a disposición en el perfil de Ryszard en Academia Edu. Also, I really appreciate your collaboration with UAM, with the Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana, which university and UAM are trying to work together towards this area that we have in common, which is new media, and I really thank you for that. And thank you very much, Ryszard. And I would like just to say to everybody that is listening to us in Spanish, vamos a tener ahora un panel que se llama Red Transdisciplinar en Arte, Performatividad, Memoria y Media, empezando a las 12:40. Los esperamos ahí. Y a todos aquellos que les interese integrarse a estos diálogos desde México, fuera de México, que quieran formar parte de la Red Ecología Acústica México, el sábado, bueno, nos pueden mandar un correo electrónico, se pueden comunicar y decir su intención por las redes, pero el sábado a partir de las 12 del día tendremos una asamblea abierta donde aquellas personas que quieran ser miembros, que quieran formar parte de estos grupos de trabajo, que quieran compartir el trabajo que ya están desarrollando, ese será el momento, y va a ser también con acceso libre a todo público. Entonces, por favor, no dejen de seguirnos si es que este es parte de su interés. Ryszard, thank you very much for being with us, and I hope you can follow also our activities for this coming days. That are going to be also other colleagues of yours working together here, like Martin Sondergaard and some other ones that you know perfectly well. And I appreciate your time.
Yeah, we'll be happy to follow all the talks had in English, obviously. My Spanish is not good enough. Thank you very much for the invitation. It was a great pleasure to talk to you.
You're welcome.